former diplomat, Professor Swaran Singh, again former chairman of the Center for International Politics, Organization and Disarmament, Chirayu Thakkar, who's a foreign affairs expert. I'm going to just go across first to Professor Swaran Singh. You know, we've listed out the big bang engagements of the Prime Minister. You know, it covers many diaspora. He's going to talk to the local people there who are Indian diaspora settled there, the CEOs, the corporates, and of course the big bilaterals. The big challenge really for India is of course how to guard against China. Do you think when we talk about a Quad summit, is that kind of bulwark which India is trying to set up against China?
I think if nothing else, the very hectic and hyperactive diplomacy of Prime Minister is returning on the world stage. In that sense, you can see 23 meetings, as you mentioned, in 40 hours. Only one night stay in Tokyo. The same thing was happening when he went to Europe, and he was recently in Nepal. That visibility and acceptability of India's Prime Minister and India, I think itself is a multiplier of India's both impact and influence when it comes to the China challenge. In fact, China challenge is the one that all four leaders clearly share, and that is the glue. That is the reason Quad has come about. So I'm sure in their closed-door meetings, there will be discussions about how they wish to resolve their China challenge. Of course, they are not going to really name China in their formal outline of either statement or press interaction. But that is definitely the underlying aim of these four leaders coming together. Of course, the immediate issue, again, as an extension of China's support to Russia, would be again how to handle Ukraine, where there are certain amount of variations in different positions, not just of India, but even of other countries. I think most important would be the meeting with the newly elected Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. So it's again, I think, kind of sharing of ideas and notes, but I hope they will consolidate rather than expanding their agenda, which has been happening in last few meetings. So 4 meetings in 14 months appear very hectic, and that sometimes leads to expansion of agenda. I think focus has to be on what they can effectively achieve in initiatives that they have already outlined for themselves. But hopefully the meetings itself is a good sign, and India stands in good standing in that kind of increasing acceptability of India, I would say, and the return of hyperactive diplomacy of Prime Minister himself.
Absolutely. Also, this, Ambassador, that because this is the second in-person Quad summit that is taking place, and it is happening it will give a view to China also because it's happening in physical proximity in Japan. Do you think it will come up with more tangible outcomes? Because that's what the experts are talking about. What will be the tangible, actionable outcomes?
Very difficult to say. I'll let our leaders talk about it and then hand down to us. Then we will be sure as to what outcomes are there and how do we want to take them forward. But largely speaking, Quad has got nothing to do with China. So that is the first thing I need to correct. Quad is a forward-looking positive agenda. It talks of inclusiveness, it talks of peace, it talks of following the international laws, it talks of building better confidence. So I'll not say that Quad is targeted against a country. Quad is a framework which tries to promote both the economic aspects of these four countries as well as the region of Indo-Pacific.
What are the contours of the Indo-Pacific Economic Partnership that will be inaugurated tomorrow?
That's an initiative where we hope that all the four leaders will be there, or if not, then 3 leaders and 1 will be joining remotely. Largely, it is the beginning of a new platform, a new framework. So many things will get sorted out when the 3 leaders or the 4th joining remotely probably would talk about them. I will not like to preempt what will be discussed there.
Okay, so Professor Swaran Singh, that's a very important clarification which the Indians envoy to Japan has made. The Quad has got nothing to do with China. Your reaction to that?
I was saying, even in my earlier remark, that this is a typical diplomatic speech. And of course, none of the Quad members will openly assert that the common concern for them is China. Otherwise, if that is not the concern, then working on climate issues, women empowerment, pandemic, or fair play in trade, etc., can be done in World Trade Organization and United Nations. Why do we need to create such a caucus? It's not even clear what they want to call themselves, an alliance or a framework or a dialogue or an association. They're definitely not an organization, because you need secretariat to be an organization. So, of course, they will keep avoiding in that sense. It's also interesting how the focus of this meeting is very likely to be, at least for the United States, to push everybody for a unanimous denunciation of Russia. Russia is a 1.8 trillion economy, 1/10 of China. So, this is just like breastfeeding in front of a weak adversary, which is what United States is doing. Russia is something that Europeans can handle on their own. The real challenge today is China. And if we keep fighting shy of saying it, of course, then we will keep meeting and keep doing things like Indo-Pacific Economic Forum now, which some confusion is created. India is joining or not joining. It's nothing to join. It's an arrangement. It's not an agreement, which is, if you follow US Congressional Research paper, which talks about what it is going to be, it's going to be creating modules on various sectors like, fair trade, supply chains, infrastructure, decarbonization, corruption, and so on, in which different countries can join or may not join. It's free will. It's not mandatory. It's a very free-floating administrative arrangement at best. So if they want to create that kind of, sort of arrangements, fine for them, but their agenda has really expanded in that sense. And if they keep saying China is not their concern, which I understand is, expected in a formal kind of a outline of an organization like this. But I believe that the reason they're coming together is clearly rise of China. And you agree or not, all these four countries believe that China is not behaving the way China should behave.
Basically, no one wants to address the elephant in the room. That's what it's suggesting. No one is addressing the direction. Okay, but we're just running out of time, so I'm going to ask you one last quick question, Professor Swaran Singh. The Prime Minister also has a meeting lined up with the CEOs of Japan. Economically speaking, for our economy, how critical does this meeting become?
I think very clearly, since Quad is moving slow, all countries are focusing on bilaterals, and bilaterals are, I think, equally important in this next 2 days. Indian Prime Minister is talking to 36 of the Japanese CEOs, because Japan, in principle, has promised, you remember the March meeting that Kishida had in New Delhi, of investing 5 trillion yen, which is about 42 billion US dollars, in India in next 5 years. Where to invest, how to go forward in that. I think that is number one item in bilateral engagement. Technology transfer, defense cooperation, which is going to be part of the President Biden's larger reported plan to provide 500 billion worth of defense technologies to India, along with close allies. I think Japan would be very clearly one of them. So opening certain doors for Japanese technology transfers if possible. Both United States and Japan have been so far reluctant to supply defense technologies to India, despite all the foundational agreements having been signed between India and United States. Mm-hmm. So some of these issues, I think, really will be the areas where Prime Minister would like to clinch something. Right. I'm sure that the larger bonhomie will be missed, because Anthony Albanese is not most likely joining. As I just heard, he might be joining online. Okay. And the way he's been extremely critical of former Prime Minister Scott Morrison, what he thinks on those issues would be really critical.
I'm sorry, that's all we have time for. We have to really wrap up. But of course, we're going to keep coming back to you because the visit has just begun. But